Question: how do you navigate the most important decisions of your life? How do you choose the professionals to whom you turn to in a crisis? How do you ensure that you're actually moving towards the outcome that you're looking for in these crucial times? Most people have no idea how to answer that question. But whether it's a legal challenge, a health issue, or a business decision, some of the best answers come in the form of knowing the right questions to ask. Whether you need the right lawyer, the right doctor, the right business partner, the right spouse, the right anything, first need the right answers. And in order to get to the right answers, you got to know the right questions to ask. Enter the Right Questions podcast.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Right Questions podcast, where today we're going to talk about how to manage the professionals like a professional. This is a really important skill because most of the time people get handled, or worse, they get burned. Hence the fire behind me, not only to keep your attention, but also to remind you of why you're here, because you don't want to get burned. And I can tell you that there are things you can do to learn how to handle the professionals like a professional, whether those are doctors, lawyers, accountants, or anybody who is in a professional class of service. Before we begin, let me just illustrate what we're talking about with an example. Think back to the last time that you had a really good conversation with a close family member, or your best friend, or even a coworker with whom you've got a lot in common. Think back to that conversation. Remember how comfortable you felt? Remember how at ease you were while you were talking to them? Now contrast that with the last time maybe you went to go see your doctor, or your dentist, or a lawyer if you've ever done that. And you'll probably notice that there is a bit of a difference, not only in the feel, but in the way that you actually behave. And that's what we're going to dive into today. Things that you can do to handle the professionals like a professional. Most people, when they're in front of a professional, tend to shut down. And this is in part because of phenomenons known as the imposter syndrome, coupled with the God complex. And we'll take each of those one by one and go through what they mean. But I want you to be aware of them. And typically what happens is the customer, or the person who comes in to see the professional, winds up falling subject to the imposter syndrome, and in so doing, they wind up enabling the God complex of the doctor, lawyer, accountant that they're seeing. This is especially the case with first-generation immigrants or folks who come from different socioeconomic statuses. They tend to feel like they're on a lower level than the professionals with whom they're interacting. And in fact, you should remind yourself, one of the tactics that we go through is that you need to remind yourself that just because you're sitting before a doctor or a lawyer, of course, those folks deserve respect. They've worked very hard and they're there to help you. But keep in mind that you're the person requesting the help. You're the paying customer, for lack of a better description. And that comes with certain rights and certain responsibilities. But don't lose sight of the fact that you absolutely have every right to ask any question that you think would help you get the outcome that you're looking for. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about here today. And if we're talking about imposter syndrome, this is something that you probably hear a lot about. And this basically refers to a feeling of someone being an imposter or not good enough to be either in the position that they're holding or asking the question to the person that they have a question with. Bottom line is they tend to put themselves on a level below where they actually are or should think of themselves as being. The God complex is just the opposite. This is where a person puts themselves on a pedestal or up above those around them, because oftentimes their environment and the feedback they receive feeds into that delusion. And again, often you'll see this with doctors or lawyers or people who have specialized knowledge that truly benefits the lives of the people around them. Unfortunately, we're humans, and over time, we can allow that to get to our heads. And if it gets extreme, this is when you'll see things like the God complex. But there's always ways to deflate those balloons. And one of the best ways to do that is to elevate yourself to the same level as the professional with whom you're talking about. Now, you're not expected to become an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer overnight, but there are things that you can do to alleviate this, starting with taking responsibility and doing your homework. Whether it's a health situation, whether it's a legal situation, whether it's an accounting situation, you have a responsibility to understand your situation better than any professional. Too often, people think that they're going to just walk into the office of a professional and then that person is going to see everything, remember everything, try 100% of their best efforts 100% of the time. And I'm here to tell you that's oftentimes not the case. Remember this mantra: professionals are people too. Say it with me now. Professionals are people too. What does this mean? It means that contrary to the God complex or imposter syndrome, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or any other kind of professional, again, they're just people too. So they eat, they sleep, they make mistakes, they don't see everything, they don't always try their best, especially if they know they can get away with it. These are human beings after all. That means that it's your responsibility to make sure you get the best out of them. Again, these are just people. And so remember that, chant that into your mind, and this will also help you really do the due diligence and do the homework to the level that it needs to be done. When you remind yourself that your doctor might miss something, that they don't see everything, that your lawyer might have gotten lazy, that your accountant didn't realize. And by having this kind of a attitude, by taking this kind of approach, way more likely to get the outcome that you seek. Again, it's up to you to get the best outcome and really just the best out of the professionals with whom you work with. One recent example I can give you happened just this past tax season with one of my close family members. I have a family member who's getting older, in retirement now, recently sold some assets, her home specifically, and was preparing to submit her taxes this year. She had it done by a major, very well-known company, and you would think that by walking into this company, they would automatically make sure that she gets every write-off, every deduction, and pays the minimum amount of tax possible. And if you thought that, you'd be 100% wrong. And so what we did, or what I did, is I understood her tax situation just well enough to be able to go in and ask some triggering questions of the accountant or the professional tax preparers with whom we talk to, so that then they can do the due diligence and find out if in fact the things I was talking about had relevance. And in this case, one single question wound up saving my aunt over $45,000 on her tax return this year. She's no millionaire. This is a simple question that I'm sure many of you or your parents might not even know about. It has to do with the sale of your home and step-up basis considerations. We're not going to get into that here, but I just wanted to just show you one example, one story where my asking one question resulted in my aunt saving almost $50,000 legitimately in tax savings. So, but had I not asked that question, or had she have just gone in there assuming that the professionals with whom she was dealing with had handled everything, she would have lost out on that. Point is, it's better to do the homework up front, make sure that you're able to hold the people accountable, and make sure that you're able to converse and ask the appropriate questions that will help you get the outcome you're looking for. Another example of this, which might hit close to home, is remember back in high school, there were days where you never did the homework. You didn't read the chapter. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. And you showed up to class and you almost didn't want to say anything because you really had no clue what was supposed to be talked about. Now, on the flip side, there's days where you did do your homework. You read the chapter. You studied the questions. And so when you came in class the following day, it was almost like you couldn't wait to participate because of how much better your understanding was. That's a pretty simple example that helps to illustrate exactly what we're talking about here. And you'll be surprised when it comes to a legal challenge or a health challenge. When these kind of things come up, you have to remind yourself that no doctor, no lawyer, no accountant, no one is going to care as much about your situation as you are. And that gives you a tremendous amount of strength and power. And it gives you also an ability to learn that you might not even realize you have. When there's health or big money or a legal situation at stake, amazing things happen inside of our psyche that enables us to see details that oftentimes even the professionals may not see because we're motivated harder than they are. But with that said, again, don't confuse what I'm saying. I'm not expecting you to understand every nuance or become the professional, but you absolutely need to understand that you have accountability in this process and in learning as much as you possibly can so that you can hold their feet to the fire in getting you the outcome that you deserve. After you've done your homework, this will also then enable you to ask the right questions. You can refer back to our last podcast where we talk about the power of the right questions, what this means, how it can be applied. Again, there's a lot of good details there, but this is the whole point, right? As you're sitting before, or as I was sitting before the accountant, I had a series of formulated questions that I had already thought to do homework on, and that I was prepared to ask in front of this accountant. And in my so doing, it immediately sharpened him up, informed him that I came prepared, and it, in essence, demanded his best professional performance because he understood that he was dealing with someone who would otherwise hold him accountable. And this is what you need to do in whatever the circumstance. Whether you're meeting with your lawyer, make sure that you ask him the questions that will help you understand that there's a good lawyer. We'll have series on specific questions you can ask your lawyer, your doctor, your accountant in later podcasts. But the point is that you absolutely need to do the work to prepare for this ahead of time. And that includes understanding your legal case if it's a lawyer, understanding your health situation if it's a doctor, well enough to be able to know what options are out there, what you should be concerned with, and whether or not the individual that you're considering partnering with on this particular health issue or legal issue is the right person for you. Again, then the other thing that you need to do whenever you're in the presence of a professional is don't be afraid to remind them that, in fact, you are the customer and that you have every right to ask any question. And that's exactly what you're paying them for. Too often, it's like we walk into the office of a doctor or a lawyer and forget that we're the ones actually paying them for the time. So, of course, it's great to be appreciative and respectful, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we preserve the relationship dynamic. We are the ones paying for and receiving the help. So we have to make sure that we get what it is we came for. And that responsibility lies with us. And if you feel like the professional with whom you're speaking with isn't remembering that, don't hesitate to bring that point up and judge their reaction. Remind the doctor or the lawyer that you are the customer, and as a result, you have a right to ask as many questions as you feel appropriate to help you make your decision. Of course, if there's any blowback or pushback on that, well, that will help you decide if the person that you're considering talking to or working with is in fact the right person for you. My personal opinion is that if I ever get the sense that I'm asking too many questions, or that the doctor, the lawyer, or the accountant whom I'm asking valid questions to isn't in the mood, isn't taking me seriously, or isn't paying attention, well, then that's a red flag and a clear indicator to me that this isn't the right person that I should be dealing with. And I'd rather move on to a professional that will do all of those things. And I highly suggest you do the same thing as well. So hopefully you can understand that the most important things about this whole entire podcast are don't rely on the professional to do everything for you. These are just human beings. The responsibility is on you to not only do the homework of whatever situation you're in, whether it's a tax situation for the accountant, whether it's a health situation for the doctor, or whether it's a legal situation for the lawyer, among other situations. But the point is, you can't shirk your responsibility. You have to do the homework. Then after you've done that homework, sit down, formulate, think about what questions you need to ask to get the outcome that you need. And again, assert those questions when you meet with this individual. If you feel any kind of reluctance or resistance, remind them again the nature of the relationship and use the information and their reactions to assess whether or not the professional is the right professional for you, or of course, to get the outcome that you're looking for. Hopefully this is helpful to you. We really appreciate you guys coming around, and check out our next podcast next week, which will basically be a master class in learning how to ask the right questions in terms of mechanics and execution. So hopefully you look forward to seeing that. We'll look forward to seeing you soon, and take care.
So again, next time that you have a crucial situation come up, next time, God forbid, you have a crisis, God forbid you have a situation come up where you need the help of a doctor or a lawyer or some major professional, make sure you remember us, the right questions. If I can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Find us on all of our socials, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. So, hey guys, I hope you found this content helpful. If so, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps us tremendously to continue to be able to bring you valuable content just like this. Check out our other videos as well, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.